So I'll call the meeting to order at 9:18. And first item on the agenda is to approve the attached minutes from the February 10th, 2021 meeting. I'll just need a motion in a second.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the February 10th meeting.
This is Wendy, I'll second. Sorry.
Any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, passes. First item is the FHSBC website updates. I'll pass that over to Devin and Cara and Ira, who meet on that weekly.
So there haven't been any major updates since our last meeting. I know Ira is working on a intro video for the homepage with Megan. So that will be hopefully up on the page pretty soon.
Yeah, we're still working with Megan's photograph. We have it pretty much done. I mean, I can share it with you if you want to listen to it. If not, it'll be up in a day or so. So either way.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, I don't think we have to share it, Ira, because it's not complete, but I think the overall message is welcome to the website. This is what, where you'll get all of your updates, your information, and then kind of goes into a little bit about the thorough planning process we've gone through, and then really just kind of general information about the project. It's pretty quick, Ira. What's the length of it approximately?
It's just 1.5 minutes. And what we're going to do is when there's major updates or changes, we'll have Meg do another one. So this is for people who don't want to go through the website. Kind of gives a, again, kind of a newspaper approach online. Here's where we are. Here's what we've done. Here's our makeup and stuff like that. So it's just getting people, introduce them to the site, because what we want to do is drive them here. And we recognize that they'll be more visually interested when they see a short little video. But that'll be up and running tomorrow. I'll get this back to Devin probably today.
Perfect.
We're just we're dealing with some of it, just the images we want to put in there right now. That's all.
Any other website updates? Okay, perfect.
I don't think so.
Next, we have Tall Timbers Marketing. Ira, maybe you just want to kind of share the next milestone step, which I believe would be our second newsletter.
Yeah. Well, as you know, the survey went out, the findings, and which I did a presentation to the town council. Obviously, there was a little article about it, which it's at least gets the people who didn't participate get a heads up. So that's the way I look at it. And what we're going to do now is do a next newsletter is about the survey findings. What are we going to plan to do about it? So it isn't just the findings. It's going to be what we want to do is share with everybody how we're going to proceed. Now, so we're taking the education to the next level. So we probably have a Q&A, more updates, things that are, progressing, whatever is that. So that's going to probably go out in mid-March. What's more important is get the findings back and what the building committee plans to do about it. So it's basically an update, and then there's from the town council meeting a discussion of, somehow trying to firm up a June date. So it's letting people know there's some progress and so forth. So that's what it is. So we might drill down on some of the questions that were more general. The more we can do it, because in the survey findings, I sent all the raw findings back to Kat and to Megan. So I don't know, at some point that's up to you. I can share all the results of everything that came back on the survey. But there was a big segment on there. People had a lot of questions that wanted fine tuning. So there's a section on there, that broke down into the what's it going to cost? What about COVID, safety and security? So I kind of sectioned it out. But the area I was most interested in, other than critiques and what about this, what about that, is people have very specific questions. About enrollment. What's the enrollment? Is that affecting what you're doing with the building? What kind of community use will the building have? There was very, very little, which I know is probably come as a topic about the 1928 building. There was actually only 2 questions about that, or any care about that at all. So the whole idea is focusing on what the new building's going to be, how it's going to work and function. And so also we're going to have hopefully the before and after section more complete, and that link will become really important on the website. Go a little more detail what's going to happen. Since we're using schematics, we got to be more specific about actually what's going to improve and change. So that's what the next newsletter is going to cover.
Now, some of those questions that came back in the newsletter, are those going to be answered in the new, from the survey? Are those going to be answered in the newsletter, like enrollment and stuff like that? Like,
absolutely, yeah. Okay. I think we got to answer some things we didn't get the questions answered in the first go around. The first go around questions were very general. Who are you? What are you doing? Now we're saying, okay, so this is what it's what, and now we're going to do, we did why we're doing it. And now we're going to talk about what we're doing. And then third newsletter is how we're doing it. And so if you got, why, what, and how, that's how you go forward with these things. So you're answering always along the line, and you're kind of doing what we call, communication cascading until you get to the decision. When people have enough information, they can make an informed decision. So it's like all of a sudden they discover this is happening. And so this next newsletter is just do a little deeper dive, answering more specifics, what's going to happen in the building a little bit more, and answering the questions that are a little more, much more specific.
Okay. Any comments or questions from the committee for Ira?
Let me ask you, do you want to post up the findings, or you want me to wait to the next newsletter that you want to put them on? I know this may come
No, we should. I think we should put them on the website.
Yep.
You've given a report to town council. Tonight you're going to be giving a report to the full building committee. I think it's, people are going to be looking for the raw data to look through. So
Yep.
I don't see any harm in putting it up.
No, I don't either. I just, it's either, presented today's building, the building committee, the full building committee. Obviously, so many folks on that meeting right now have not seen all the, the findings.
Right.
The town council would just want to know top of mind, what stuff they want to know, what the community, who responded, what their general interest was. So the building committee and us as a subcommittee have to get more specific, that's all.
Right. And I think tonight will give a lot of context and analysis from those survey results. So having the building committee have your presentation tonight and then be able to dive a little deeper into the data, I think would be helpful.
Yes. And so the process of education continues. If that you want a theme, that's what the theme is.
Okay, perfect. Any comments for Ira or questions?
Generally, let's say this, I would say positive or negative, they were thoughtful. It wasn't only like, I'm moving out of town, this is disgusting. You got, you had around 50 people complaining about taxes and cost, but that's pretty normal. Actually, it wasn't all that high from based on other surveys. The other thing I can tell you, the response rate is about the highest I've ever done. I've done this for 25 years. I've never seen a 10% response rate from it. The downside was we didn't get as high as percentage back from parents. So as a subcommittee, we really need to think about, if we're going to continue this discussion like this, how to engage particularly elementary, pre-K to 5th grade parents. That's going to be the really important thing to do right now, because that level was well below 10% findings. When we compare it with your population, there's 17% of your population is above the age of 65 or retired, but they were over, they were almost 45% of your respondents. In terms of parents in the age group, which is close to 52%, we barely had an 8% response from parents. My rationale for it is that they're busy with the COVID, kind of keep things, and they probably look at this as junk mail, even though we don't treat it that way. People over who are retired, they read junk mail. I'll show you statistics on it. When they get mail, they read everything, even if it's junk. If you're a busy parent and you're raising kids, and you got your job, you look at mail and you're treating it as junk because most of your stuff comes through the transom, now online. And we're seeing this across the country. People are throwing out bills. They're throwing out important information, throwing out tax information from the IRS because they're not reading in their mail. But it doesn't mean the results were skewed, because I built into when we did it, there's only an error margin of 3%. on it. It wouldn't change that much. In fact, the higher rate, if we have parents returning, would show even a higher percentage, which then look like it would be skewed. So I don't know. I know I'm drilling in the weeds here a little. I just want to give you, as a subcommittee, how, when we do this, how we evaluate it. And the town council just want to know, was it a legitimate findings? That's why we didn't do it by internet. Internet would have skewed it very high and would have been probably an error margin of 20–25%.
Perfect.
So this is Beth. I know we're not going to tackle it in this meeting, but I don't want to lose sight of Ira's, encouragement for the subcommittee to get a handle on pulling in the parent population. So I just want to kind of, maybe put that on our agenda for the next time, but I think we can, Meg and I were talking the other day, we did have at one point, and I can't remember the time frame, a meeting at the library with the PTO leaders. Kat, were you?
Yep,
I
remember that.
So, I know it's COVID times, but something similar to that. I think we need to start thinking about that networking, going to PTO meetings, which are probably all virtual, but actually we know that the attendance is higher at PTO meetings right now with them being virtual.
Yeah.
If one of us can sign up for PTO meetings once we get calendars and make those connections with what are now probably new presidents, co-presidents from last year. But
hey everybody, it's Scott. Good morning. Sorry, I was a few minutes late on. I'm scheduled on May 12th to what I anticipate. Kelly Sanders and I, who's the principal at West District, spoke a few weeks ago. I'm scheduled to speak to their PTO. I've done that for the elementary PTOs for other things like our mascot change and those kinds of things. But Kelly and I'm optimistic that on the 12th, and we can talk about this again. I think Beth is right, getting it on another agenda. But I did speak to Kelly about combining all the PTOs, and I think the other principals are in the process of confirming that, with being able to speak about the building project on May 12th, combined PTO in the evening. So I'll have more information. Like I said, we've been going back and forth on getting that set up, but I anticipate that will happen. So I don't know. I'd be welcome to feedback if that's where the timing is for that. But I think that's still an okay time for us based on the tentative date right now.
Scott, let me give you a heads up. If the town council approves the end of April, beginning of May, go to referendum, we have to go to a quiet period. So I would suggest doing it in April, not in May. The May can be done by a PAC group, which can do the same thing, but you can't go out and organize and do advocacy after the quiet period using any official town sites, meetings, anything. PTO falls underneath the election laws for that quiet period. Up until the quiet period, you can do what you want. We can be advocates and do everything. So I suggest moving it up. Let me tell you what the issue is with elementary parents. They're not thinking about the high school. So they have to be taught and say, if you're staying in town, this is where we're building this for you. The kids that are in there now or graduating over the next 4 years, this building is not going to be up for 3 to 4 years. So their mindset is all on their kids in their elementary school. So they don't see anything wrong. So it's not a focus of them. The key, Scott, which is really important, you're saying, is make them aware that this is where your kids are going to be going. And this is the experience they're going to have. And you should pay attention now, even though I know you're more concerned with your kid in the elementary school or pre-K. So I just want to give you kind of a mindset where I've interviewed many, many elementary parents, and this is like landing on the moon to them. It's so far away that we have to say, no, tomorrow your kid's going to go to the high school. And you got to, getting them thinking that way right now, that motivates them to come out and support a project like this.
And I'm working on nailing down or trying to firm up a time frame as to when town council would officially approve and send the project to referendum. I'm working with our town clerk and our finance director just to make sure everything logistically would be ready for that. But we're looking about a month ahead of time. So if it is that first Thursday in June, probably the beginning of May would be the quiet period beginning.
Yeah, the election laws are very specific about advocacy and public dollars and using facilities and PTOs. I'm sure you might have run into this a little bit in your previous campaign, but at that point, a handoff goes to the PAC groups or individual people who want to really promote it. They can do what they want. And, you know, and I'll probably meet with them prior to all this anyway to get them engaged. We found from the past when we do this, the transition to them is basically they're picking up the ball from the building committee. And they could be even stronger advocates. You know, they can be much more aggressive. You don't want your building committee in the town to look like, you know, we're just going to steamroll over you either. But now it's the time for, you know, positive information, advocacy about getting the parents engaged to understand that they're going to be affected by this.
Yeah, I see Emily has Wendy, you have a hand up, and then we'll go to Emily.
Okay, yeah, I just want to go back and revisit like the response rate that you were talking about, Ira, and I know that it was that mail version. So wondering moving forward, and I did hear you say it would be skewed if it was delivered through the internet, but I guess I'm just seeing the trend that like the younger parents and the elementary school were just kind of conditioned to take surveys through the internet versus mail. And is there a way that we can, you know, move forward and be creative of how we can collect, you know, our next surveys? And could we revisit or look at how other people are, you know, collecting information through the internet so we can get that more response from that population?
Well, I think this is where the PTOs come in. I would suggest them individually doing surveys of their parent group. Because that, if you then open it up to the whole community and we find the findings are like 90% parents, it's so skewed. And then it looks so much like it's done. Why we do a written one, it's time consuming, more expensive. And I agree with you. Your parents are on the internet. They're not reading this stuff. But you then have to go school by school, the parent groups in there. And we could set up a survey where they go and do that. But I would before I would do that, Wendy, I would do a presentation, our Prezi presentation we're working on right now, which is going to then explain in more detail, them to get educated. And in a sense, what we want to do is reintroduce the first newsletter so they read it. And so I would think you need advocates on it. I would mainly make that a really grassroots. And there you can really target and talk where, you know, you got similar parents who know one another in the same building. Is the way to go about it. That's how it's worked in the past with us when they're either disengagement or not enough information. It's not that parents don't care, it's just not a priority. It's probably the way to look at it. So that's how I would do it. If you do a blanket townwide survey by internet, it's we've done them, but you know, the error margins are extremely high and they're not skewed. When you do written surveys, they are much closer to 2 or 3% error margins in terms of responses. And when you got a 10% response, it even makes it even clearer about, you know, this is what people are doing. It's not that we had a bunch of parents respond. And I bet if I asked a larger group, there probably wouldn't be much different answers. So that would be my suggestion, is that you find out your PTOs, work them through, we discuss it with them, and then some from the building committee or you folks, whatever, go in and do a quick presentation, you know, online like this. Here's the presentation we did to the town council, or I can redo it and package it so they can understand a little bit more. Then that would be helpful.
All right, it looks like Emily has a hand up. Devin, will you allow her to talk?
I think I'm good, right?
You are.
Yep, should be good.
I appreciate you hearing from me. I know I'm not on the committee. I am attending in 2 roles today, as the PTO president and then as the chair of United Farmington. So as a PAC in town, we are, you know, greatly aware of the dark period. And I had a question, and Ira, maybe since you're on this call, you can help with that, about the website that you guys are building and has so much archived information. Does that have to go completely dark in that period as well?
Well, we have to go through it and clean out anything that says advocacy, and it has to be completely factual. So in a sense, it becomes an archive.
Okay, but there's so much information on there, like the proposal, that kind of the factual information you anticipate staying. Basically, my PAC is wondering, do we have to go and collect all that and have it in a different spot so we can access it during that quiet period, or the factual information should still remain?
No, the information you should put on your PAC group is what what's important for the community or the voters or the parents to know. You don't need to load up all the archival material. You're not a public entity. You're not under freedom of information. You can put up whatever you want. What's more important is you're putting up what people are voting on and why you support it. You can use the materials, you can bring them over it because it's all public domain. And I can.
Right, that's what I understand. Our message would be very different. I do understand that. I just wanted to make sure we could still continue to say, here's this website, you know, the building project website would it stay up? And so it sounds like it will in a certain form.
Well, it depends on the town attorney. I've been to some town attorneys that can keep it up. I did one in Mansfield. They had them take everything down. There was nothing to refer to the referendum. This has to go through the town attorney, letting what compartments, or can we leave it alone? So Kat, I would get your town attorney quickly involved with that, making sure they're not breaking election laws. I've seen it both ways with towns. Some leave it up, nothing goes wrong, but if there's someone contesting it and it goes to court, whoever is approved it has to pay a fine.
Right. No, I understand it's a complicated issue.
We're going to have our town attorney review that, so we make sure we're not taking down things unnecessarily. You know, he will have a thorough look at that. I'm trying to think of what we did last time, and I believe we kept the website live with just like the actual plans and the budget, like, you know, strictly factual information, but I believe we shut down our Facebook page. Yeah. Just trying to remember, but we'll have the attorney definitely review everything.
Kat, what happens usually it's switched over to, usually what we do is that we take a new landing page that's put on the town website, which is all about the facts. In other words, if you're mailing something out, which they say, here's, you know, call the question.
Yeah.
Here's what you're voting on. Here's the background information. And therefore you're creating just a landing page and bringing over the stuff that's legally you're able to do. That's usually the compromise.
Yeah, we'll vet all of this and start those conversations now. So there's no questions, you know, when the blackout period comes, we'll be prepared.
Okay, thank you. And then as we had Meg come and talk to one of our PTO meetings, and 2 points. One, it was one of the best attended PTO meetings we've had, even virtually, where, as Beth said, attendance has gone up at times. But I do think a lot of people came to listen to her. We advertised, you know, in advance that she would be speaking, but we also had so many parents who don't know anything about the project. So I do encourage, I mean, I know when you're on the inside and it feels like it's all you're thinking about, but she was getting questions that were very basic in nature, you know, so someone who had no idea kind of what was being considered. So as you loop those people in, I think like the more you can do it and the more frequent would be beneficial, because as you guys are discussing, those are the people who you need to vote yes.
Emily, would it be helpful if I sent to you or sent to Kat or to Megan, just a 4-page Q&A without the survey? And
sure.
We can't survey them again. And therefore, it'll be a digital format and they can send it to all the parents.
Yes, sure. Absolutely. I think anything at this point, because, yeah, like I said, there were people, you know, who were not aware at all that this was even an issue. So I do think the more information we can give people, the better.
I have that, Emily. I can pass it along.
Emily, okay, Kat can send it to me. Yeah.
All right. I think, Kat, I just sent you the 4-page without the survey.
Yeah, okay. I have that.
Okay. Yeah, so that might solve, because I was thinking when you're talking, Emily, that having some handout, a digital or a printed format, either way. In fact, you could print it out, leave it in this, you know, in the principal's office or whatever, or hand it out, you know, next PTO meeting. But if everything's online, digital will be fine.
Yes, yeah, the parents are not really entering the school. We've lost a lot of touch points with the parents in that regard, but yeah, we have amped up our digital presence as a response. So we have, you know, all the PTOs have Facebook pages and websites and things. So presumably we could just do it that way.
Yeah, thank you. Good thought. It makes a lot of sense now from what you're talking, to get it to all the parents on the elementary school PTO sites.
Great, thank you.
And it looks like Marcus also has his hand up, Devin.
Hey, everyone. So speaking on behalf of Comprehensive FHS, about the website. Two quick things. One is that we are mirroring the FHSBC website, and we have every time you guys update something, we hoover it up and put it on a server somewhere so that if and when the site goes down, we will have access to all of the information that was ever posted there. And then secondly, it's regarding the previous referendum and the website information coming down. We felt that was an overly broad interpretation on what constitutes advocacy by the town's attorney at that point. We did seek some independent legal advice on that, and for what it's worth, those attorneys agreed with us that that opinion seemed overly broad in what constituted advocacy and what did not. I would encourage in your discussions with the town attorney to really push back on what constitutes advocacy. I don't know offhand, looking at the website, I can't comment anything specific, but it seems to me that the vast majority of what's there is just factual. There's not a lot of, no one's saying vote for this or anything like that. It's just, this is the state of the current facility. Here's the plan to address that. I'm not personally seeing a lot of advocacy there, but again, that is a legal decision. We felt the previous decision was overly broad, and we've had some legal advice that concurred with that, for what it's worth.
Thank you, Marcus. We will, as I said, we will do a deep dive with the attorney to make sure. It's a tough situation because people are looking for information when we're dark. Right before the referendum, they're trying to get all the information that they can. So it's a tough balance, but we are bound by these laws and our opinion, our attorney's opinion. So we'll definitely have lengthy discussions with them to make sure we are putting up what's appropriate. And what we're allowed to. So absolutely. All right. So any other comments on that, or are we good to move to side by side?
I just have one thing, Kat. This is Ellen. And Ira, maybe you can weigh in on this, because I've been thinking as we're talking about getting out to the community, to the different groups, I think I'm wondering, and this is in addition to everything else, what Scott wants to do with the PTOs. And I'm wondering if there's value in, because we meet a lot as a communications committee, of having an evening, maybe at one of our evening meetings, inviting in the parent leaders of the schools, and also group leaders like we do. We have a superintendent's parent forum, so all those leaders, because, and I'm just wondering if it'll have value, because we have all the experts here. We have our PR, we have our administration, town officials, board members, building committee members. So I'm just wondering if, we could, Ira, I love your title. I wrote it down. We could call it the Process of Education Continues Night, for our PTO leaders. And just so they're clear that this is the place where they get their information. They get the real time where we are in the process. And it would not only, because they're our window to the parent community that we know we're missing. And we just want to make sure that they know where to get the information. And, we're all here to answer any questions. So I don't know if that might be of value.
Ellen, we did a thing in Mansfield, worked really well. We did a video of the chairman of the board, the chair of the town council, and the chair of the building committee. What people want to see is a unified front, that all our elected and appointed officials are behind this. So you can have a combination of an online meeting, invite in all the groups, and let the people see that this is a unified thing, because most people right now believe this is a Board of Ed project. They don't see it as a building committee or a town council. They think the Board of Ed is in charge of the schools, therefore this is a Board of Ed project. What it really is a town project that's using a process of using You know, some places like you have a very organized building committee. Some communities don't do that at all. So I think what I was seeing on the next newsletter and what I'm hearing in the discussion is getting Scott, the principals, they want to see, you know, the professionals and the elected officials as a unified group. They don't have to sit there and, you know, do rah rah. All they have to do is saying, our town kind of needs this right now. We've been through this, and that, you know, because now's the time to be advocates. They can voice their opinion. There's nothing wrong with that right now. And then we go into the explanation of, you know, here's how it works. Here's what we're talking about. So you have the very general, and you get more specific, and then you get down to what Scott would have to do day to day to run a new, you know, building. That's going to be an improvement, because they want to hear from the educators. And what I find in doing these projects, the more you engage educators in this, knowing they are going to be in this building, how they're going to be able to improve or enhance. In your case, you've got already a good school system, is enhance the instructional opportunities. That came up in a survey. They want to know what the value of putting a new building in will improve the educational output. And so that's all part of it. So the town council looks at this as something that engages all our community activities. The Board of Ed, you know, has to look for how the kids are doing it. And then for the building committee's job is to kind of pull it together, get the information done. But right now is the perfect time to get everyone organized to play their role. And so when the time comes, when it goes a quiet period, the PAC groups and interest groups have a template to go forward. I don't know, Ellen, if that answered it, but that's from my experience.
Well, no, I mean, do you think there's value in bringing them to us instead of us going to them? I'm talking about inverting the situation, inviting parent leaders to one of our communications committees.
Oh, absolutely. I think minimally right now is get the PTOs, first of all. Then once they are looked at as someone you can go to, then you can open it all up. I think this is what, like, remember I said cascading communication? And so it's as much as I'm a ground roots kind of, you know, you do everything in the ground up, these kind of projects need more of a top down way of getting more engagement, because the confusion is created at the top, not at the bottom. At the bottom, if people are confused, they won't do anything.
Ellen, I think that's a good idea, because we also, like Beth had mentioned before, we did have a meeting with PTO leaders, but that was over a year ago, probably at this point. So I think having them come to, you know, inviting them to a forum like this to show where we are, how we can help them, I think it is just part of our communication message.
Yeah.
Right, and I just want to be clear, in Farmington, we are inclusive in parent leaders in all groups, because we go well beyond PTO leaders. We have we have Emily here today, a leader in United Farmington. We have our comprehensive FHS. We have our foundation. So we have a strong list. Well, I would want that list to include everyone that we would normally invite to our superintendent parent forum. Those are, so I would call them more, when I hear PTO leaders, I think we go beyond that. We need all of our, our parent leaders.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Scott, I have a question for you. Is that, I don't know how many teachers live in town or even have kids in school. I assume at the high school there are some, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Can you identify them?
Oh, yeah.
Ones who will be advocates for this? I'll tell you, teachers would have the most influence who teach in high school right now, explaining that they are in there, that building day in and day out, and they're saying, this new building will solve a lot of problems for improving my teaching and improving the learning experience. Since on the survey it came in very high, hearing from educators right now is really important. And particularly ones who have, they live in town and they have kids in school. So if you can identify one or two or three of them, Scott, and we can talk to them and they're supportive of this project, they have incredible influence on how parents and people in the community would feel about this project.
And our faculty is very appreciative and very excited to see this continue to move forward. I think, you know, prior to the pandemic, before you joined as well, Ira, we were fortunate to have, you know, our architects and CSG and Megan come in and present to them several times as well. But I'd be happy to do that. I talk about it at every faculty meeting since its inception, and so it's on our agenda for next Tuesday again. And I also email every chair report, so all those things are in our hands. But they're highly supportive of it. So and some have approached me, so I'd be happy to, you let me know what I can do to connect them. They've asked how they can help and things like that.
Well, it's kind of same approach Ellen just mentioned. This is grassroots up. Who's most affected by this? It's the teachers, the students, and the parents. So that we have to move them up in the engagement. And so when a parent hears from a teacher, it's still pretty influential than hearing from a board member. As much, I'm not against board members, but when you survey communities, they rather hear from believe it or not, the 3 top respected fields are trusted in today's society are veterinarians, nurses, and teachers. Superintendents, board members are down the list, mayors. But when you talk about people who they respect their opinion, believe it, it's those 3 things. And if you're a parent, you can understand all 3 of those things: schooling, health, and my pet. It's so, I know this is a little sidebar, but this is what I do, where, we do so much research on how people, when you're in the advertising and marketing field, you want to influence people in a good way. Unfortunately, we're also going to be influenced in a bad way. And hearing people from their heart and what they believe has big thing. I saw in Rocky Hill where we thought a high school referendum was going to go down. A teacher stood up there and said, "This is where I teach science. I teach it in this closet." We had 700 people in an auditorium. She stood up there. "My kids went through here. I've lived here my whole life. This is unacceptable into the 21st century. You should be ashamed of yourself if you don't vote for this." Won by 60% of the vote. And we attribute just to her statement among 700 people changing their opinion about why this project's important. So because it got down to the level of her teaching. That's what I meant by value statements, value stuff about people day in and day out. So Scott, I know you got a building you can function in, and that's not the issue. The issue is what's the improvement to do better at teaching. And that's what the survey said. Explain to me what's going to be better.
So Ira, this is Beth. Around the importance of bringing in the messaging or messages and the value statements from the educators, would it make sense to have one to talk about kind of real life effects of a building project and what this would mean at the meeting that Ellen is talking about?
Absolutely.
Okay, so
Absolutely.
maybe put that on as a goal, and Scott could help us find a good person for that.
Yeah, 1 or 2 people. If you have a male and a female, or a man or a woman teacher, particularly science and math, it's really important. And then maybe another one's English or social studies. That rounds it out, liberal arts and STEM kind of stuff. We find parents kind of understand that. If you have someone in those areas, Scott. Because they could, and more important, they're talking
12 in the building, at least.
They're talking why they live in Farmington and why they sent their kids to school. No better hearing from a parent who wants to send a teacher parent who's sending their kids to the school system. I remember when I did that thing in Rocky Hill, I could see all the nodding heads. I was in the front looking at people's when they're kind of like a wow moment. Yeah. Like, I didn't know this was going on. I walk through that building once a year with my kids when I have a meeting of teachers, but most parents are rarely even go to the high school. And where they end up doing is usually a gymnasium to maybe watch their kid play sports, and that's it. So they have no relationship to buildings other than their remembrance when they went to high school. I know this is really kind of sidebarring it, but this is how you get people to support projects like this.
No, I think it's important because as we're planning these things and we're at the crucial point of the, what do we have? 3 months really to get the message out and bring these people together. So that's valuable.
And now it's a determination. Who are the messengers and what levels? That's what I think our discussion is right now. At what level do we bring the top messengers, the middle messengers, the PTOs, and the parents or teachers? And we mix them up and we schedule it and organize it in such a way so at the end when the vote comes, everyone's been addressed. And that's how because that's how you get a bigger voter turnout. When people Prioritize it, number one. Number two, believe in the mission. And number three, support it.
So the other thought I had about educators, and I may have missed this on the revamped website, but I know we did that series of videos, and one was, I believe, 2 teachers that talked about educational impact. So that's something that we want to make sure is still front and center or visible, and maybe we bring it to some meetings when we don't have a teacher there or something like that. But let's use what we have. It was a pretty heartfelt description of how the improvements would help their teaching and learning.
I know.
I think it is still live on the website. I think it's just on the under the statement of needs section, but we can do we can sort of advertise it better, maybe on our front page or something like that.
Yeah, Scott, what I do is like to work with you on what kind of video I'm kind of looking for. I mean, those are good for when they were done. I think we have to visit and kind of hone in a little bit more specific. So I can work with you on that. If once you identify the teachers, we can have a short meeting, and you don't want to script them. You don't want over script, because you want them to speak from their experience and their heart to do it that way. So it's, those are long videos. I'm talking, like a 45-second, 1 minute, 1 minute and a half, very short little snippets. It's how people are getting their information today when they go online. Yeah, I'll give you a minute, maybe 2 minutes, I'm done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that, Ira.
Okay.
Ira, this is Ellen, and what are your recommendations for sort of, showing a unified front from elected officials? Is that our website? Is that any thoughts on that?
Well, there's 2 things to do, Ellen. One is get a short video from each of the leaders, like, why they support this project. Then the other one would be a Zoom meeting like this, and having them all on, open it up to the public, and see who comes up, get a barometer from it, and then you have a short presentation from each one of them, and open it up to questions. So it says to the town chair says, what's the financial impact? So you can have your financial person there. If it's on the Board of Ed and you're asking specifically, how is STEM going to be better at the high school? Scott, you can have someone there, to maybe answer those questions. So what we're doing is integrating the process. So this becomes like, this is what Ellen, what you're thinking. How do we get grassroots? We're limited now because you're not going to have 700 people going into an auditorium right now. Who knows whenever that's going to happen. So you have to use this medium, which is, crazy. They just had a whole program on it this morning about the pros and cons of Zoom meetings. And, there's a strong recommendation to shut off their videos and treat it as a conference call. But on the other hand, when we have a few of us on like this, it's fine. So I recommend that would be a way to go about it. So you have 2 fronts, one on the website so they can always hear the message, so when everyone wants to go there. And the second one is having a live Zoom meeting that, the community can ask questions.
This is Wendy. I just quickly wanted to bring up a suggestion when you were talking about teacher representation, and kind of wanted to grab Scott before he left. But I did see a few comments, and then I did hear few trends of parents asking about other opportunities that are outside of the core academic areas. So I'm a little biased here because I supervise the electives here in my school district, but wondering if you had teachers that could also discuss like what opportunities these kids will have with the new building. I think that would be very powerful.
Absolutely.
So I just want to put that suggestion out.
Well, there's also sports, extracurricular, music, arts, Scott, all that stuff. And I think we can hone that up on the website a lot more. We have photographs, the schematics that are showing some of these already. Don't we, Kara, have just some of those function areas? Yeah.
Yeah, no, like I
That's
said,
a good idea, Wendy.
I'm not going to have any issue. There's a line of teachers who are ready to support in any way that, that they can to help, talk about the exciting opportunities that this new building presents. I do have to excuse myself, folks. Ira, I have a meeting scheduled tomorrow with some teachers actually to talk about this work already. So once I meet with them, I will follow up with you and we can talk about next steps.
When you meet with them, could you get the top 5 or 10 things that they think are positive about the new building?
Sure.
That'd be a good place to start right now.
All
Right,
right.
this is Ellen Ira. Sorry, I don't want to beat a dead horse with the website and, you know, and because this is important to me, if you think it's important, and showing a unified front of our top level school officials and elected officials. But see, we have limited time with this people. What I kind of see, and, you know, and I respect how you feel about this, but on the website, I mean, even if we just had a photo, you know, potentially a photo and a statement, you know, and people see that over and over again, maybe it's on the front page of the website, you know, of support or how we feel. How do you feel about that instead of a video?
A statement? I mean, you're talking just some statements
A
from.
quote.
Oh,
So
yeah.
just
Yeah,
almost like a marketing thing, because we just don't have a lot of time with these people to watch all these different videos. I don't know.
No, I agree with that. You have to have economics here, but I'm talking, this is still the initial education. And so from what I hear, I always put myself in terms of a citizen or a parent or lives in the community. And as you hear, they're just still not familiar with this. So they got to be introduced somehow to how the town functions. Why is there a building committee? I know it's obvious to all of us, but I'm telling you from the survey, people are maybe aware somewhat, but they're not sure how this all functions. So, because it's right now, I'm looking for belief in trusting the people who are saying things. And those are elected and volunteers or selected people in the community who've been chosen on these committees. And it doesn't have to go on very long, but I agree with you, Ellen, having quick quotes, short videos, those are very appealing. It's, I mean, it was up to me that I'd have 700 people show up one night, you know, do the whole deal, the Punch and Judy show, and call it. The Zoom world makes it more difficult to do those kinds of things. And how do you parcel it down? And it's very, very tough. And some people are going to the website, some people are going to go to Facebook, some people are going to talk. And my belief right now is getting, like your grassroots, at this point, get the PTO presidents, when those parents are interested on each elementary school, engaged, and get the PTOs up to snuff of where we are and what we need their help with. But quotes and quick quotes and stuff that are short, Ellen, I absolutely agree with you. Less is more, always.
So this is Beth. I think Ellen's suggestion is great, but I also understand for people that might spend a little bit more time, how much more powerful a video could be. And this is probably just technology. What about a picture, a statement from each chair of the town council, chair of the board of ed, chair of the building committee?
Yeah.
And when we get a video, that becomes a link to a video. So people who have more bandwidth to listen, click on the video, but what's up front and center, maybe right on the home page or the landing pages, those testimonials or those quick quotes.
The other thing, we're dealing with the senior community, a lot of them coming back who don't have access or don't use a computer or don't use Zoom or anything. That's why we're suggesting 3 newsletters. That's the only reason. If I could do this all digital, I would say better yet. But we're talking many people who are in their 70s or 80s or taxpayers, lived in town many years, still need written material. So we actually have to replicate everything we do to some degree on paper, because that's how they still read the Current. The average reader of Hartford Current is 63 years old. That's the average age of someone reading a Hartford Current. Online, it's a little lower, it's 55. And so the Current doesn't have that kind of pull anymore. And some of your local papers there, and so forth like that, are extensively read by seniors or older people over 65, particularly over 75. Baby boomers are more savvy and can work with online stuff. But many of the people why seniors tend to vote, because they don't get the information.
So with limited media coverage, especially with, a reporter doing an article, but I think we've been pretty fortunate up until this point. Maybe it would be something the PACs work on, is to get letters to the editor, just to get more coverage in those papers, if that's where, just to keep it.
Now, I think we have to look, Beth, we have to use the website as a newspaper. We have to drive people all the time. Combination of video statements like Ellen suggested, quick quotes, update facts. and try to do it, and then use newsletters to kind of just provide more information to people who just aren't internet savvy or don't go there. So we have to play to both age groups.
Yeah, it was, that was more in a response to hearing you say, we still have people going to the Hartford Courant, the Valley, we have a Valley Press that's, is it twice a month now? It used to be once a week.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I don't think the Currents could do much more. I was amazed they ran that story on Sunday above the fold. That was, in many ways, that's really rare with the Current. I mean, I'm glad you got it. I mean, not because of me. I mean, I was just a messenger in terms of doing it. But the feedback I got of people, I didn't know that, you know, so it played its role to that older group, which was really good.
Right, right.
The Current, Current doesn't even do letters, local letters. So I agree with the Valley Press. Yeah, get some stuff in there to support it. And that'll get to your senior community a lot better. Yeah. And we can work with them. You know, that's what we have. We can find out their scheduling and their calendars and everything, and we'll get things together. And better yet, you get some people from the PAC group or interested parents to send letters to the editor. We can show them how to do it. We won't write it for them, but what they should be doing.
Okay.
So I do want to keep moving on the agenda because there's one thing I do want to get to today, and we're approaching the hour mark. So briefly, side-by-side photos, I think we're still working on those to complete, get that ready to go on the website and use for the Prezi document. So I know TSKP is working to finalize those. The new business for number 1, we have to review the draft FAQ responses. We did review those last time, and I left it on the agenda just because my question was for Ira. Those were very specific questions that we received at Town Council and Board of Ed. Are those things that we should incorporate on the FAQ or our website, or are those more of an internal document talking points for when those questions come up again?
I think we should benchmark them against the survey results, Kat, to see if there's if it's really very specific, and it needs a technical answer. Yeah. If it's more general, we'll probably can match it up and put in the next newsletter about, okay, enrollment, whatever it may be, and fold it in.
Okay, so what I might do is we set up a Google Drive for the committee a while back. Okay. Maybe I'll just add that in there as a Google Doc so that people can have access to it, refer to it, and we'll just keep it going and keep a running tab of all the questions we're getting and the answers we're providing for it. So it's kind of, we can use it as both.
Or can you get me on that, Kat? I have not.
Absolutely.
I have not got I don't have access to this Google Docs yet.
I don't know how frequently people use it, but we have it.
Yeah.
Well, along those lines, Kat, I was going to ask if when that gets up and running or things start changing, would you send us a link to the Google Drive, and that'll I know that'll help pull me back in and keep an eye.
Yep. And that's just for your information, Ira, where we have, like, when we set up the committee, all of the reference documents, like, NEASC things and OCR reports and acoustic report, all the backup material is on that Google Drive. And we'll just use that as a collaborative forum so that people can get the information as we update it and have access to it.
And whenever you get feedback, Kat, coming in through the transom for not us asking for it, just put it up there so I can see it.
Okay.
And so we don't get behind the 8 ball here about something that might pop up like the 1928 building issue.
Right.
That it didn't show up in a survey, but it's showing up on Facebook. So we have to find a way to address things. I call it the lights in a football field. A little thing can kill projects like this because it gives people an excuse not to support something.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I think we'll start utilizing our Google Drive more as a communication tool, and even questions, even though we put it in the agenda, the correspondence we receive, I think maybe at least putting what the question is in that Google Drive so people can start think about what is top of mind of some of our residents.
Yeah. I know this might seem just overwhelming the way we're discussing all this, but it's all folds together. And once you get the plan in place, everyone has a role, so it doesn't become overwhelming.
Right. Okay, so the next item, to discuss public informational meeting topics. This is kind of the big thing I wanted to talk about today. Ira had suggested putting together topic meetings for public information. Those could be short meetings. I mean, one that comes to mind for me is the 900 wing and what we're doing with that space. I wanted to have the committee kind of brainstorm some of these topics that we could use at these meetings, and then we'll put together a schedule, possibly utilizing the 5:30 time slot we have for this committee as well, so we're not having to add a ton of meetings. But I think for now, at least, you know, shouting out some topics that we should include or we think are important to isolate as part of the discussion, and then I can propose a schedule for us.
How many meetings will there be up until, let's say, the end of April? So how many times can we do a topic, Kat?
So, I mean, we are scheduled to meet ourselves as the committee every other week, but we do alternate between a morning meeting and a nighttime meeting. So I think we may have to add, if we're doing nighttime meetings, I think we may have to add some times because.
I'm talking about the overall building committee.
Oh, building is every other week as well.
Okay, so that's where I've suggested that we open a half hour before and open the questions or deal with the topic. So we have to decide about, you know, the open sessions where comments are, I assume won't be too much, but the topic, should we deal with the topics at the meeting of the whole building committee? Or do we do it with the subcommittee? Which is what do you think, what are you suggesting?
It doesn't matter to me. I was thinking for scheduling purposes, a lot of times the subcommittee meets right before the full building committee.
Right.
But whatever you think is best. I mean, we already have it on our calendars at 5:30 once a month at least. So that's why we were suggesting that time, but anything you think is best. Or even a different day. I mean, I know it's adding to the calendar, but it's really going to be for the next probably March, April before a May quiet period. So it's a lot of meetings, but.
Well, I think all this is good stuff. It's just how to package it the best way so it makes sense to the people we're presenting. And that has kind of a fluid context to it. So you start from, you know, if you're going to do a topic building is, you know, talk about the schematics and before and after. That's where you start. Then you can start drilling down into the specific areas and saying, okay, this is how we see where the ball fields are going to go with the 900 building. This is how we're going to deal with traffic patterns. These are things that came up in the survey. You know, what's the science labs going to do? You get into you get to the specific things that are going to go on in the building. And of course, then there's one that's going to be about the cost. We have to have a session about how that breaks down and the impact. That was done at the town council meeting. Yeah, we in fact probably have to do that several times so people understand the impact isn't as great as they think it's going to be. You know, it's not a $300 million project. It's what the tax implications are to family members, to homes, to households.
I'm just trying to think of topic. Would something about maybe like the timeline be one? Because I know the last time there was questions about disruption and the phasing, and I think it's important to highlight that we really, it is minimal disruption because it's a brand new separate building.
Yeah,
Kat,
I think
that would, no, Kat, we have educational disruption has to be on there, whether we, and I was just thinking maybe we need to bundle a couple, but I agree if it's a topic like that was big last time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it showed up on the survey about, you know, how you're going to do both of these things. Or, you know, many people are not even unsure that this building is on the same, you know, same piece of land. You know, I go back to our, you know, that, you know, we have to start from, you know, I landed from Mars. You know, where's this building? One person thought it was going to be on this site. And so we have to start, the building is going to go over here. We're going to minimize disruption. We're going to have safety and security. So I agree with you, Ellen. We have to kind of walk them through. The decision was made to build this building on the site, this piece of land that the town owns already behind City Hall, Town Hall.
Yep, and I'm still seeing things about why didn't you go elsewhere? You know, we had that whole site subcommittee. You remember? I mean, I think reminding people about that we really vetted every other possibility this time.
Yeah, and I think
about that
would be a topic. So
plan.
my approach, you think you explain but you don't defend. All we have to do is explain why we did it. We don't have to defend why we did it. Because those decisions have been made. So now we have to tell the public, this decision's been made, here's the reasons why. And then you go on to that. So someone says, well, can you put it over there? Stuff like that. And I'm, again, taking the survey responses and saying, let's bundle some of this and answer the most basic questions still. I don't think sending a newsletter out and doing some general has solved everything we want right now. We got to firm up that baseline of understanding.
So these are the 6 bullets that I wrote down, before and after, kind of what improvements are made, like what we have now versus what we're getting. The 900 wing, I said traffic and site plan, and I think the discussion about why we chose that site could be weaved into that.
Yep.
I heard classroom, but I said classroom / interior, maybe getting into the specifics of that, cost, and then timeline / disruption. Am I missing anything we think would be an important topic to discuss? I mean, the neighborhood, maybe we revisit them.
Well, I think, Kat, the other thing, if you're doing a 900 building, what's going to happen when all those buildings are down? We're going to get more fields, so you can talk about sports and, what's the rest of this property? What are you going to do with that?
Right.
You can fold it into the 900 building.
Okay.
Kat, when you said traffic and site plan, were you folding that in with a 900 wing? Or
I had it separately. And the only reason I separated it is because I think people need clarity about, I keep seeing a lot of correspondence about the 900 wing and why central office is going there. And, we're making that a separate project, as in we're going to have the new construction for the school and then a separate even grant application for the 900 wing as part of an overall thing. So I think there's a lot of questions about why we chose the 900 wing, what we're getting and all of that, the reimbursement, that I don't know if it warrants a separate meeting. But
I'm perplexed that the hyper focus on that, even from our council, it's just amazing. And so I don't know if it's better to keep it separate and that way you can spend more time on it, or if it's something that we shouldn't be spending. I don't understand it, but obviously it's a question in a lot of people's minds. So
right, I think it ties into the 1928 discussion, and I think once the town council makes they have more clarity around the 1928 building, which it'll be at a special meeting tomorrow night. I think maybe that'll avoid that. Why this? Why that? Because it's now, if there's a potential to keep both buildings, they're looking for justification in the cost, I think is where that's coming from.
Yeah. Go ahead, Ira.
No, go ahead, Beth.
So the other thing with the 900 building that I keep hearing is, and we had this last time, they hone in on, why does the Board of Ed, and they don't really understand what that means necessarily, not the council members, but the public. Why does Board of Ed need offices? They think Board of Ed members are getting offices.
Like you have an
understand
office.
That it's, I think maybe we need, we've had people approach us, Liz Fitzsimmons, why are you getting an office in this? Or you must be glad you're getting an office. So that central office, that terminology, almost central office for the district or school district central office, but also a big need, and I'm surprised I didn't hear more of this at the town council meeting, is our other bursting at the seams. So taking the board out of there is an overall improvement for town hall. I think that's an important.
Right. I think we need to address the town hall space needs and why that's also, part of the overall picture.
It's a factor, and it's not just, Kathy Greeter and her staff wanting a bigger, better space, which I think sometimes kind of comes through, but it's really a practical issue with town hall crowding and how it's affecting everybody, all the departments. And
well, what you're going to talk about here is an economy efficiency. You're using existing town land. You don't have to buy land. We're going to be able to have more space for sports outdoors. So the space is all going to be used properly. We have the space to build a new high school. So the 900 building makes sense because it's going to be half it's going to be half changing rooms. Is that the plan? Is that, for sports and activities that are existing in that thing?
Right.
We're just going through it in Glastonbury. They just approved $4 million to redo a building that goes back to the 60s. It's just unacceptable. And it's right next to the football field. And so, because the high school building is literally, 100 yards away, but they're investing in completely rebuilding and putting up a brand new building where you already have one that you can modify for both uses. So this is where you make the case. Now we have more, we have more ball fields, more sports activities. We have place for changing rooms that don't have to tie up to high school. We got extra space to put the Board of Ed. That also frees up the town hall to deal with, they need space. So once you package it, it all makes sense. It's a packaging issue. What we don't want to do is isolate one thing against the other. That's why I'm always concerned about these projects. It's what I call the football lights in the field, where the 900 building becomes the issue when that's not the issue at all. It's creating an economy, economy of efficiency here and reusing structures in a way that makes sense. So that's why I think maybe bundling that cat might be better.
Okay. Yeah, so what I'll do is I'll take these topics that we discussed and give like a proposed schedule for rolling this out, because we don't have a ton of time to get these scheduled, to market these. I'd like to include some of these in the newsletter of upcoming public discussions. So I think if I put this together, and then we can try to get this rolling.
And I think once we open it public too, the thing we have to explain when we're showing the schematics, we have to explain clearly that these are schematics, not final designs, because that visual identity creates confusion. They're just conceptual ways of seeing space, and the final determinants will be when the referendum is passed. That's when final design occurs. Because people will be confused. They look at that and saying, "Oh, this is what the building's going to look like." So this is all, again, part of the education process, why we approach it this particular way.
Okay.
So there's somewhere we have to have, in one of the meetings, Kat, explain that more clearly.
Yeah.
And then we can get in you can tie that to what's going to go on in the building.
Yeah.
In other words, we hired an architectural firm to come up from experience that this is the way you start a project. We can't give you final stuff until we get a final approval of all the monies that we can spend.
Okay. That works for me. Does anybody have any other ideas, questions, comments? No? Okay. I think this is very productive, and I think we have a good starting point for our, now's the time to really focus on the communications, and, that's we've approved the schematic, now we have to communicate and show people the value of the project. So we have it's going to be a lot of work, but I think we have a good game plan. So with that, I think all is left is adjournment. We could get a motion in a second. I think Beth and Sharon are the only two committee members left.
And I'm not a tech voting member.
Yeah.
Good job for you guys. See, Kat, it only ran.
Okay, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Kat, it only ran an hour to meeting, according to my clock.
What's that?
It only ran an hour according to my clock.
All right, guys. Thank you very much. We'll see you tonight.
Thank you. See you tonight.